Ever arrived at an event that looked epic online and fell flat in real life? I did, in Portugal. I pitched anyway. What I left with wasn't capital, it was conviction. Here's the lesson. Today I'm sharing a recent experience that brought everything we've discussed in this podcast full circle. From my first rambling pitch in 2020 to standing alone in a hotel room in Portugal a few months ago, this episode is about growth, clarity, and learning to find the lessons even when the experience doesn't match the marketing. This is a story about soul building, imperfect spaces, and why your why matters more than your slides. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's talk about what happens when you keep showing up, even when the stage isn't quite what you expected. There's something surreal about circling back to where you started, especially when that starting point includes shaky beginnings and deep self-doubt. In 2020, I gave my first startup pitch from a tiny studio room during the Shiznovation competition. I was speaking to a camera, praying the internet connection wouldn't drop mid-sentence. My voice trembled, my eyes darted everywhere except directly at the lens. When it ended, I wasn't sure I belonged in that room or any room like it. I felt like an imposter playing at being a founder, convinced everyone could see through me to the insecurity underneath. That pitch was my first startup, the one that would eventually fall and teach me all the painful lessons we've explored throughout this podcast series. At that moment, I didn't know what was coming. The co-founder breakup, the financial struggles, the identity crisis, the eventual closure. I just knew I was scared and trying to appear confident. Flash forward to a few months ago. I found myself in another hotel room, this time in Ericeira, Portugal, clutching notes for another pitch. Still solo, still a little nervous, but fundamentally different in one crucial way. This time I knew why I was building what I was building. This time I belonged to myself, even if I wasn't sure I belonged in the room. Before I get into the pitch itself, I need to talk about the place because Ericeira isn't just a hotel. It's what I call a quiet temple, a space that invites you to take up room, not with loudness, but with presence. There were tiny lizards scurry through lush gardens that feel ancient and alive. The wine literally tasted like an ocean, with that mineral quality that could only come from grapes grown in salt air. Every detail from the sustainable materials to the scent in the air whispers throughout thoughtfulness and care. It was a place where I felt like I could breathe fully for perhaps the first time in my life. I felt the safety and spaciousness of the environment. I loved falling asleep to the sound of the ocean, to music drifting up from the restaurant below my room. I laughed at myself for being happy about being close to food. Such a simple pleasure. The setting matters because it created a container for what was about to unfold. Both the beautiful parts and the disappointing ones. This time around, I didn't show up with a perfect pitch deck. The slides weren't as polished as they could have been. Some transitions were clunky, there were probably typos I'd missed, but I showed up with something more important, a clear purpose. I pitched Hot Renew, the self-dating app that helps people reconnect not with someone else, but with themselves. It's not about swiping or matching algorithms, it's about reflection, emotional honesty, and inner healing. It's a digital space to date your own soul. I pitched solo, standing in front of a room of strangers, still scared, but no longer apologizing for my existence. And this time, instead of just polite nods, I got real feedback. Questions that probed deeper, so showed people actually understood what I was trying to build. Even better, I was embraced into a community of female founders building in wellness, beauty, and adjacent spaces. There were women who got it, who could see past the polish to the power of raw clarity about why your work matters. This felt like validation, not of the product, but of the journey, of everything I'd learned throughout failure and healing, of the choice to build something aligned with my values rather than chasing market trends. But, and this is a significant but, the experience wasn't all grounding rituals and empowering connections. Some parts of the retreat felt genuinely short. Others felt actively wrong. Sponsorship that were promised didn't really materialize. I was told an investor had sponsored my attendance, but no such investor ever appeared or made contact. One participant was initially denied a room despite having registered and paid, leaving her without a place to stay. This was eventually resolved, but it shouldn't have happened in the first place, especially not in a place like that. The first group dinner, held outside of the beautiful hotel, was far from nourishing, both literally in terms of the food quality and metaphorically in terms of the experience it created. And the panel discussions, some of them, they lacked substance. They felt more performative than practical. Lots of general platitudes about empowerment, but little concrete advice or genuine vulnerability. This was difficult to process, especially considering the emotional labor, time, and financial investment it takes to attend something like this as a bootstrap solo founder. The retreat was marketed as a space for women founders to be supported, seen, and potentially funded. But in practice, it leaned heavily into aesthetics over substance. The photos from the event look amazing, and they should. Many were carefully staged rather than capture authentic moments. This gap between presentation and reality became its own kind of lesson. Maybe especially in that imperfection, I found something valuable. Because the mismatch between the glossy marketing and the gritty reality made my own clarity even sharper. You don't have to be polished to be taken seriously. You have to be honest. Your why has to hit harder than your slides. Your conviction about the problem you're solving matters more than the aesthetic perfection of your pitch deck. This was my lesson too. Even when the setting isn't perfect, even when expectations crumble, you still speak your truth. You can still grow. You can still extract a value from an imperfection, from an imperfect experience without pretending the flaws do not exist. So instead of participating in every presentation, every lecture at that retreat, I've decided to look for my own experiences in that place. So, as I mentioned, I drank wine, I ate fish. I found experiences that they were bringing me joy in the space that was kind of hollow. And I'm choosing to cherish those memories. The stunning hotel, the delicious food, breathtaking ocean views. I'm even grateful for the swag bag with the products like the Real Passionate, which is a notebook, or Ayuna, which is a cream. I met interesting founders and I had interesting, fun conversations with them. But I'm also not pretending the retreat lived up to what was promised. Both things can be true simultaneously. This experience taught me something crucial about entrepreneurship that extends far beyond this particular retreat. As founders, we're constantly entering situations that don't match the marketing, accelerators that promise more than they deliver, networking events that turn out to be sales pitches, mentorship that's actually just someone building their own brand. The skill isn't avoiding these situations entirely. It's learning to extract genuine value even when the container is flawed, hold multiple truths simultaneously, gratitude for what was good, and clear-eyed assessment of what wasn't. Speak honestly about gaps between marketing and reality without becoming bitter or cynical. Use the experience to refine your own standards and values. For me, this retreat crystallized that I want to build differently. When I create founder spaces or community experience around Heart Renew, I want substance over aesthetic, genuine support over performative empowerment, honest representation over carefully staged photos. So I didn't leave Portugal with a new co-founder or a giant investment check. I left with something potentially more valuable and definitely rarer: clarity and trust in my process, like tiny pivots in how I'm thinking about features, bigger conviction about why this product needs to exist. And I'm still solo, still self-founded, still deeply in love with my own vision. This clarity matters because it's grounded in reality rather than external validation. Nobody gave it to me. I earned it through the process of showing up, pitching honestly, receiving feedback, and processing both the positive and negative aspects of the experience. There's a particular kind of confidence that comes from not needing an experience to be perfect to gain from it, from being able to say, this wasn't what was advertised, and I'm still glad that I went. That's founder resilience. If you listen and you've been let down by a retreat, an accelerator program, a networking event, or any organization that didn't live up to what it was promised, I want you to hear this. You're not naive for believing the marketing. You're not overreacting if you feel disappointed. You're not alone in this experience. It's completely okay, necessary even, to take the good while calling out what wasn't. You can extract value while being honest about gaps. You can grow in spite of space rather than because of it. And to be honest, I connected with those women at that retreat because they were also unhappy about this whole setup. They was also seeing the flaws, the things that were overpromised, the things that were not so nice about this experience. And we connected because of that, because we shared that unhappiness. And it's more than okay to keep showing up with your full truth, even with, especially if it makes others uncomfortable. You don't need to perform authenticity in spaces that are themselves performative. Your honest stumbling is worth more than anyone else's polished facade. Your real questions matter more than surface level panel discussions. Your genuine struggle to articulate your vision beats perfect pitch delivered every single time. Looking back over the entire podcast series from episode 1 about being a flag in the wind in today's reflection on pitching in Portugal, I see a coherent narrative emerging. Every failure taught me something crucial. Every painful experience became wisdom. Every moment of doubt revealed something about what truly matters versus what I'd been conditioned to pursue. The first startup failure taught me about identity diffusion and the importance of maintaining self separate from ventures. The narcissistic co-founder experience taught me about red flags and self-trust. The heartbreak taught me about reconnecting with myself. The building in public taught me about vulnerability as strength. And this Portugal experience taught me that you can keep showing up, keep pitching, building, not in spite of imperfect circumstances, but through them, extracting lessons and clarity along the way. Your story, the real one, with all its messy truth, is actually your most powerful strategic asset. Not the curated version, not the highlight reel, the honest, sometimes uncomfortable, always human story of how you're navigating this journey. Sometimes growth comes from beautiful spaces filled with ocean views and thoughtful design. Other times it comes from broken promises and the gap between marketing and reality. Either way, we keep building, with eyes open to what's actually happening, with hearts intact despite disappointment, and with our why leading the way forward. This feels like both an ending and beginning for this podcast. We've explored the full arc from failure through healing to building something meaningful, from using yourself to finding yourself again, from seeking external validation to trusting your own voice. If you've been with me from the beginning, thank you for listening to this journey. If you're just discovering these episodes now, welcome to the honest middle of building something that matters. Heart Renew will keep evolving. I keep sharing, and somewhere out there, someone who needs to hear that you're not alone in dating themselves first, in building solo, in trusting the messy process, they'll find this work. That's enough. That's more than enough. This is Founder Unfiltered. Thanks for being part of this journey, and until next time, keep building with eyes open and heart intact.